Welcome back to another episode of H2 Flow, your number one college podcast here, presented to you by H Enrichment. As always, for your host, it's Steven and Marilyn, bringing you nothing but good vibes. And today, our guest today is Jeraldy. Sorry, Jeraldy, or as I like to call him, Coach. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing very well. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Can't complain. So, the first question I'll ask you, bro, is what year are you currently in, and what do you major in?
Right now, I'm currently a senior, and my major is biotechnology.
Awesome, awesome. So, if you had to give someone a basic idea about technology, how would you explain it?
About biotechnology, or just technology, period.
Biotechnology.
I guess the best way I could describe it is looking at how animals do things and how they operate, and using that in order to create things like certain medicines or whatnot. Biotechnology is a very broad spectrum. It can encompass things from goats being able to make silk to genetically modifying foods like rice and tomatoes. It's in a positive way, the manipulation of different organisms for the benefit of people, whether it be medicine or nutrition.
Awesome. That's really detailed. I get it. I got you. So, did you always know you would be doing a major in biotechnology from as long as you can remember, or was
Um,
it something you kind of figured out?
no, it's definitely something I knew that I wanted to do, especially in high school. I was always fond of science, especially in kindergarten. I wanted to be a paleontologist. But in high school, definitely high school, I went to a trade school in Massachusetts. That's where I'm originally from. I lived there for about 15, 16 years. I did biotechnology at a trade school that I went to for my first 2 years before I moved to PA. And
Mm,
it was some of the best times I've had in high school. And it definitely kind of influenced me to be where I am right now with my major in biotech at HU.
awesome. And my last two questions I asked for you, well, you answered one of them, is where are you originally from, and how was life for you growing up in your area?
Um, my area was thankfully it was very unique to most areas. I lived in this area called the Beacon Projects for most of it. Um, it very Hispanic. Most people were Dominican. And so there was almost that semblance of a community connection. It was always very great. In Massachusetts, it snowed many feet, sometimes four, and it'd be nice when neighbors from 5 blocks down would come in and help shovel out, the old lady's driveway or walkway who lived next door because she couldn't do it. And that semblance of community really stuck with me a lot. There were people that lived there that I knew from kindergarten all the way to eighth grade. Very nice, quiet community, nothing too crazy. I had the luxury of going to one of, if not the best elementary middle schools in the city, so it wasn't all bad. Uh, Other than, I mean, in terms of where I lived, it wasn't anything dangerous or too bad. I think I'm for the most part pretty lucky to where I lived in that city.
Awesome. Okay, cool, cool. That's good to hear. Well, I'll pass on to Marilyn to talk to you a little bit about your high school career then.
All right, so your elementary life seemed dandy, but moving on into high school and then again with biotechnology, where did you find yourself?
I found myself comfortable but also conflicted, if that makes any sense. A lot of my middle school life was definitely centered around being bullied for sure, and it definitely took a toll on me. And so coming into high school, I kind of saw it as like a refresh button in a way. And when I was in biotech for a long time, I'd say for I think the first year or so, I was the only guy there, which was also a different perspective, but also very welcoming as well. There wasn't that male expectation of hiding your emotions or not like or just like being more open. I was allowed to be more open with with who I was emotionally. It was really the first time hanging out with all those ladies, the first time that I was able to be open with myself. I would do anything possible to convince my mom like to have me stay. I would even rather stay with my dad, who I wasn't really particularly fond of, just so that I can stay in the area. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and I moved to York, PA, my junior year. One of the negative things about it, I guess, was in my mind, I knew that socially I wasn't going to fit in. Because by your junior year, friend groups have already been established, upperclassmen and whatnot. And so coming in there, it was very difficult for me to really talk to anyone. The furthest any relationship went, friend wise, was acquaintances, where I just saw them in class, spoke to them here or there, and that was it. Um, I went to William Penn Senior High School, which is not a fun school to go to. Predominantly African American. Uh, Definitely not the nicest school. I remember my first week of school, a fight broke out, and then there was also this incident with a train happening in a bathroom, and that was the thing. Yeah. um, that was always an issue. But like it would always those situations would always like reinforce like I knew I shouldn't have left. I should have fought more, whatnot. And being there really, really took a toll on me mentally. Because the students there were very rude to me. I don't know what it was. I was generally very quiet. I was always a good student, but mentally it took a really big toll on me. I know that my senior year, it was sometime in March. I attempted the first and only time I attempted suicide, and it was mostly just because of an overmounting level of stress being in this new city, in this new school with people who don't want to spend time with you, and the house that I'm living in isn't even like fully, I guess, complete. We were able to live there comfortably, but it wasn't like done, and everything was very stressful, and there was some issues going on at home, and I thought that it was the only way for me to really feel comfortable or find peace, at least in my mind. That same day, my mom had uh, had found what I was doing. There was no sense hiding it, and it was very stressful. I didn't really know how to react that night. I was very down in the dumps, as you can imagine. And I went to bed that night thinking that it was all a bad dream, and I would go to school the next day because I think it was a half day, thinking that it would just be a normal day, and it was definitely not. To my surprise, during my psychology class, my AP Psych class, I find that my mom is in the guidance counselor's office trying to figure out what was happening, as a concerned parent should be. And while sitting there, um, I was obviously very depressed and very sad. I didn't want to be there at all. And we kind of all agreed that I should be inpatient, kind of send me over to a treatment center so that I can get the help I wanted. I don't know if you guys have heard of what crisis is or not, but crisis is a kind of almost like a hotline in a way. I know in the situations where I've had contact with them, they came over and they spoke to me directly about how I'm feeling, options, and she agreed that I should go inpatient. And so she had given me for sure false hopes about what it would be. She said she had told me things like I could bring my phone and I could bring my charger and everything so I can listen to music and whatnot. And and so I spent the night at the hospital thinking, okay, I'm gonna do everything I can to improve and become a better person, I guess. Um, and when I showed up to where I ended up showing up to, it was in Shippensburg. It was called Roxbury Treatment Center. And unfortunately for me, I was 18 at the time. I had just turned 18 in January. So legally I had to be put in with the adults, which is definitely a jarring experience. Um, and it was nothing like it was promised. I couldn't have my phone throughout my entire time there. Phone calls were limited to by appointment basis, so I basically had to like write down when I had to um when I was basically I had to schedule phone calls basically, and hoping I get those phone calls on time. Um, the only times that I was able to go outside, because we were split into groups, only time I was able to go outside was the 45 minutes that we got daily. And then when people went on their smoke breaks, I would join them just to be outside. Not a smoker, but I did it just to step outside, which was always nice. Um, I noticed while I was there that the patients that were there were more helpful to me than the staff were, because they were definitely a lot older than I was, and they were able to kind of give me a perspective on life as to not available, as to how um, as to how everything kind of like as to how like my life was worth more than it was. It kind of put into perspective the idea of like hey, like life is more than what you think it is, you know. Um, I know that one of the people that I still keep in contact with, Tim, he went through a lot, and now he's a pastor at a church. It was very tough. The worst part was I was a senior in high school, and from my window I could see Shippensburg University, which, funny enough, was one of the schools I applied for while I was while I was in high school. So it was almost like this weird level of like symbolism where it's like I'd rather be out there than in here. And it was a really big motivator for me to to improve and become a better person, for sure. One of the things I appreciate about my mom is that she came to visit a lot. Every day that I was there, I spent a week and a half there, I think. And she visited every time. And Shippensburg to York is not a 20-minute, 30-minute drive. And so I appreciate her for that as well. Um, but yeah, I was able to get out of that successfully. And I was able to graduate as well. Finished as an honors graduate, which at least in our school is top 15 GPA wise, which is really good. And it kind of helped solidify um, that there's more to life, even if there are a lot of hurdles to go through, for sure. So that was my high school experience for the most part. Very exciting, a lot of ups and downs, but I'm glad I'm through it for sure. Wouldn't do it again. There was when I was over there and I spent some time there, one of the more interesting experiences was there's this woman that was there. Her name was Leslie, and she was really fast. She didn't speak any English, and everyone thought she was speaking Spanish, but she's actually like Indian.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a fascination with water. And so the way it worked was the way the showers operated, it was very easy to clog it. I don't know why they didn't plan it, but while I was outside and during my 45 minutes, I come back inside sweaty and tired from playing basketball, and she's in my bed, soaking wet. And what had happened was she snuck into my room, turned on the shower, and then covered it with a towel. She was fully clothed and hopped in the shower and then onto my bed. And I was just like, it's one of those things where it's like I wasn't the first victim of it, and her room is always like that. And so I kind of spoke to her more like a disappointed father, I guess. You know, it's kind of like, just get out of my room kind of thing, you know? And that was definitely one of the more interesting experiences that I had while I was over there, for sure. I knew that I wanted to do biotechnology since even before I moved over to, before I even applied for college. I knew that if I'm going to university, it has to be specifically for biotechnology. I didn't want to do biology or chemistry or biochem. And there was, if I could do things over again, I probably would. I think I'd still go to HU, but I didn't apply to as many colleges as I should have. I applied to Shippensburg University, York College, which is about a 10-minute drive from my house, Elizabethtown College, and then HU. And for my financial situation, HU was just the obvious pick. They had the major I wanted, and they were willing to give me um, the whole full tuition scholarship thing. At the time of applying, my GPA was like a 4.05, I think. I know, right? It put me fifth in my class. It obviously dropped. It obviously dropped, but yeah, after meeting with I forgot what her name was. Oh, she'll kill me. Well, she doesn't work there anymore, but whatever. I basically worked with a couple people. Then she moved to Virginia. Then I worked a lot with Aaron um, at the end of me kind of transitioning into HU, and that's where I was, and that's where I am.
All right, yeah. So HU offers a lot of various scholarships. So I mean, I chose it for my financial situation.
Yep.
So obvious choice there. But you mentioned if you were to do it again, you would apply to possibly more colleges. What would you say to high school students who are maybe in the application process right now?
Um, the first thing that I did was make sure that I have my FAFSA figured out. Financial aid is the only reason why I'm going to college right now. And it'll probably continue to be that way for as long as I do college, if I ever do, after this. So financial aid is a must, at least what I recommend. Second, apply to as many schools as possible. A lot of schools have both SAT and GPA requirements, which is good because you might be poor on one but good in the other. In my case, I took the SATs twice, and the highest score I got was 900. And out of a possible 16, I think is the top. So thankfully, my GPA was able to carry me into the viewing eyes of different schools. So if you're slacking on one or not doing well on one, make sure you really hammer home on the other. I know that because of COVID, the SATs, they're either going to change it or remove it or do something somehow. So that might affect things, but apply to as many schools as possible, 100%. There is no shame in being accepted to 30 schools and picking one, you know? You're only opening up your realm of possibility when it comes to higher education.
Absolutely. And then before I transition back over to Stephen, we talked a lot about your high school experience, which is very important, especially pertaining to mental health. So what we ask a lot of our guests on HU Flow is how they handled their freshman year of college, whether it be roommate situations or just academics. What was your freshman year story?
Well, my freshman year story was definitely a confusing one. It started off with me not knowing my HU login information. And so Naeem thought, who was in charge of, I guess, student activities at the time, my freshman year, he had thought that I wasn't going to move in on moving day. And so I was in the rare group of people that had to stay at the Crown Plaza Hotel while they were fixing up iHouse. They were making sure that it was right for the students. So I spent half of the first semester of my freshman year at iHouse, or at the hotel, then at iHouse, which was definitely an interesting experience. I was not very fond of my roommate, mostly because the food that he cooked would always stink of onion, and he would never crack open a window or let me know like, hey, I'm gonna start cooking with some onions and stuff. Like, you might want to cover your sheets or something. None of that. I spent a lot of my time because I was just coming back from everything that was happening my senior, so I was still kind of in a little bit of a funk for sure. Um, I spent a lot of my freshman year very alone and quiet, more of a feel out period, if anything, just kind of feeling, going through my classes, thinking it was kind of going through it as the same way I went through my high school year. Um, but yeah, I would spend a lot of my time kind of just ordering food, trying to share with as many people as possible, open up connections and friendships. Um, but yeah, my freshman year is mostly quiet. Very forgettable year. Very forgettable.
So I take it you don't like onions?
Oh, I love it. It's just like when you cook with it, you gotta be aware of what you're cooking around as well. The room in our house that I had was it was like the stove, and then we had a spiral staircase in our room, and so like the stove was right under it, and so when you cooked, the smell would rise up immediately.
Mm.
And there would be times where I would do laundry or clean the room on the same day that he makes these meals, and it just drove me through a wall. It drove me wild because then the only window that was upstairs, his bed blocked it, so I couldn't like hop over his bed and open the window. You know what I mean? So I would just usually just leave the room.
Classic roommate debacles. Over to Steven for more.
I don't remember, like, didn't I visit your apartment one time? Because, like, I remember a spiral staircase, and I feel like it was your apartment, or maybe someone else. I'm just not remembering right. Because, like, there was a lot of places in my house like that. Um, so this, so basically, let's talk more about your college career. So, how was some classes for you? Not just your freshman year, just throughout. Like, how was your classroom experience? Would you say it was awesome? Well, then, like, how would you describe it? And this is pre-COVID, because I'll
Um,
also ask after.
I would say for the most part, very fantastic and boring. Like from like the people that I shared class with was always great. I always loved that's how I was able to form the friendships that I was able to make mostly through just proximity with the people that I sat through in class and met outside in clubs as well. Um, I know that I had chemistry for at 7:55 a.m. In the big room on the 11th floor, and it was having Dr. Santai as a chemistry teacher is very intimidating. Very. There were people in that class that were, in my eyes, top tier students. Like you had your Maddies, Carly, Parker, your Vicky, Morgan, James was in there, Jameson. You just had the cream of the crop in my mind, and it was very intimidating. One, it's also very too early to like to do chemistry. Period. Um, a lot of my classes would be really boring just because of the way the professors teach. Not the professors themselves, because they're great people, but I would find myself like dozing off next to James in bioinformatics, and playing like BitLife on my phone or something to keep myself awake. Um, I think most of my fun obviously came from outside of classes, but it was also really interesting as well because there would be some classes that would be different or that would challenge me mentally. Like I took Civic Mind with Dr. McKnight, and we, instead of just sitting through a boring lecture, we would actually reenact certain moments in our class, and that was fantastic. And it's definitely something that I'm gonna remember and stick with for sure. For the most part, it was pretty okay. You had your borings, you had your good classes, the ones you wanted to avoid. Nothing particularly crazy.
Okay. And also just a little shout out. So Matty, Parker, Carly, I'm calling all y'all out because y'all got the emails about this too. So y'all should hop on the podcast one time for the one time. We got the coach on, so I want y'all on here too. So don't
Mhm.
don't act like I forgot about
They're
y'all.
very bright people that have a lot to say about a lot of things.
Exactly. So especially Parker. I know you, bro. You a young prodigy in my eyes, so I want
Yeah,
you on this.
you tell them.
Exactly. But but I love your explaining classroom experience. I mean, it sounds like you was for the most part doing good, and it also helps you connect more with friends because you mentioned all these cool people that I know as well. Definitely
Hmm.
cool people. So basically, my question I'll ask you is, okay, so that was class before COVID. Now, during a pandemic, you're online. How was that experience for you?
Oh man. Okay, so it's kind of weird actually because last semester academically was the best semester I ever had, right? Which isn't saying much to be honest with you because grade wise I'm not the best student. I'm just gonna keep it a stack with you guys. Um, it's weird because while I was at HU, there would be times where I didn't want to go home just because it gave me a level of independence that I didn't have before. But being home, it wasn't too bad. At least last semester, I was on top of it. It kind of this new environment kind of forced me to be responsible for myself. Like I would have to force myself to get up out of bed and sit up and take notes and participate in class and knowing that I can't like at least where I live, I can't like get up and go out somewhere. Being on campus, I would walk down Front Street, go to the YMCA every week, or even just like go to the student union or library and bug somebody, you know. I think the difficult part is keeping in contact with people that you don't normally um, hang out with. At least for me, like the people that I see that would visit me in my dorm um, would be the people that I come in contact with the most. But then there'd be others that I wouldn't see as often, which is always a difficult thing. Uh, Last semester was a toughie for sure. Um, I ended my relationship with Reagan. Um, and then for winter break, I took a trip to the Dominican Republic, and it was a terrible experience. I got amoebas in my intestines, which was from some contaminated juice, and that messed me up for. And that, first off, worst Christmas gift ever. That's for sure. Worst Christmas gift ever. And then it messed me up for like a week after when I came back home as well because I was on medication for it. Um, this semester, early this semester, it was kind of like my New Year's resolution period where I was gonna really hammer and iron everything out. So this semester, I finally bit the bullet, and now I'm on antidepressant medication. I'm on Prozac right now, and it's made such a big difference in how my mood is throughout the week. I no longer really wake up with like with dread. Um, I feel my mind is more clear. Academically, though, it's wishy-washy. Um, but yeah, I've been doing this thing now where I've been trying to reach out to people. I've reached out to a lot of students, just letting them know, like, hey, thinking about you. Want to let you know that if you need me for anything, you know how to contact me. It's nice for people to know that, like, hey, like, even though we're not at HU, we're still HU, if that makes sense. Regardless of all the gripes I have with the university and how they do things, I still care a lot about the people that are there. And I know if it was for me, I would love if someone would be like, "Hey, I hope you're doing well." So I try to send that out as well. You know, just making sure that everyone is doing well. Um, and it's been helping me cope with this semester as well, especially because again, we're not meeting in person. Um, so yeah, keeping in contact with other people from like through Facebook especially has been really helpful for myself and hopefully for them as well.
Okay, coach. I mean, you took a pretty much the end of your 2020. It was the highlight of everyone else's 2020 in a big way. So it sounded like the 2020 at the end though was just like, okay, it ain't it. And I like, especially when you're talking about like ways of reaching out to people. Because, for me, after I graduated, some of the cats that I graduated with, I'll never see again in my life. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
chance. So I always love to hit some people up on Messenger, or if I have their phone number, just hit them up and say, hey, man, it's been a while, let's talk. Because I feel like there's people who will never really hit you up unless you initiate that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of one of those same energy things. So,
Yeah.
but for you especially, you use this thing as something to help you mentally, but also you're trying to help someone else out too. And I think
Yeah,
that's
I
really
remember hitting you up too. I remember
oh
hitting you up.
yeah. I was like, oh, what's up, coach? What's going on, brother? Like,
Yeah,
I was just
it feels really nice. Like, I don't know if it's just because I feel like I should bring it up. I've been treasurer of SGA for a year now or so, a year and a half. And I don't know if it's just because I'm in a position of, I guess, I don't want to say power, but like in a in a higher position than the normal student. I feel like I need to keep in contact with with the student body because the SGA is supposed to be for the students, we have meetings where we want people to come in and be mad at, like, hey, we don't like the way that HU is doing this, or we don't like the way this is being done. We want that energy. We want people to come in and voice their concerns and complaints because nothing gets done at HU unless the students want it to get done, you know? And I guess the idea, I guess, is being the thing that you want to see in the world. And so, again, keeping in contact with people, just making them feel better, even if they they don't even respond back, but just knowing like, hey, someone's out there thinking about you, makes my day at least. Yeah.
yeah, I respect that, dude. I mean, I think for from my perspective on that, because it's a really good thing that you're doing. I think people who just do that, like some people see it also as a random act of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Someone just randomly hitting you up, just be like, "Hey, man, it's been a while," and some people just be surprised by that. Because, but at the same time, there are people out there like yourself who just do that because just saying I'm thinking about you, and you're not expecting nothing in return,
Mm-hmm.
and the person responds, "Cool." If they don't, life goes on. So I think that's a really good approach. I mean, I think you're making some day happy. You're also making yourself happy. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's very good that you're doing these type of things. And man, hey, keep doing them. I mean, I do them. I think I'm at a point where I bug some of
Like,
my friends, but
mm-hmm.
like I enjoy it because I'm helping bright up their day. Oh, I call sometime, they'll be like, "Damn, dude, I was kind of going through it, but thank you," because
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what you'll find yourself in from doing the little things. So that's awesome, Coach. My last question I'll ask you before I pass to Marilyn, if she has any more questions, is so you brought up the fact of SCA, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a former member of SCA as well, but I wasn't that like into it as you were. Like I didn't have an official role. I
Mm-hmm.
only was like I think only a member that's helped out a lot. So like you're a treasurer. You've been about it for a year now, and how is the experience of being SCA and overall for you?
Um, I guess overall it's been a wonderful experience. I get to sometimes I feel like a spy when I'm part of HU. Sometimes I get the scoop on things that is about to go down or will or won't go down. Um, Promise I've never leaked anything. Um, but it's it's nice helping everything fall. I'm an organizer. I like I'll never participate at an event that SJ or events committee sets up, but I want to be a part of it when we set it up. One of the more successful ones that we did was the ski trip and having it be $25 per person. Um, uh, Contacting the Round Top Ski is the one we usually go to, and having that go swimmingly was very gratifying. And I like it um, when people I guess come together and organize that. Um, but I'm also concerned about it as well sometimes because, excuse me, I spend a lot of time in housing. I spent a lot of time in housing. Since barring this year, I've spent every semester in housing at HU. And we would have our mandatory hall meetings, and Nikki would say something, or I would hear or I would see people make a Facebook post about something that they dislike about HU, and they will never come to the SGA meetings and tell us what they don't like. Um, and I hope this isn't an HU answer, but things don't get done at this university if the students don't say that they want it done. You know, students wanted a place to hang out. They wanted a place to where they can game and socialize. We got the student union, you know, and that's a really big example as to how things get done. Sometimes I don't want the student body to see SGA as above students when we are students, you know. Some people have their gripes with HU. Hey, I have mine as well. I don't like how they operate more as a business than a university, you know? Like, I can't tell you how many times things are done more for PR than for anything else. I think that's where a lot of the resentment from esports comes from. I think when esports came about, at first I think it was like an interest group or a club, and then out of like the blue it became like a whole team, you know. And then you have students complaining, well, you got this thing that came out of nowhere and they get all this treatment, but housing is a wreck, or the students don't have anything fun to do. All we have is like piano and ping pong, you know, and they got this fancy thing at the Whitaker Center, like in the basement. All these TVs. They even had a pizza party showing it off, and understandably, students get mad when they see that because it's like, well, what about us? I used to feel that way, and then you kind of realize that, okay, well, these people are bringing eyes to the university. You know, whether we know it or not, inadvertently, money because of these esports teams is coming to the university. Maybe not now, but eventually. Um, I've also noticed that there just isn't much to do here. Like, I can't tell you how many times I tell people, oh, I go to Harrisburg University, and the first thing they think of is hack. You know, like if I have to hear another person say that I go to hack, it's like I'll go crazy. I'll go crazy. And I know a lot of it isn't HU's fault. It's more the city, but there isn't much to do. If I was to describe Harrisburg, I would describe it almost like a retirement home in a way, where it's like everything's like shut down by 5 p.m. You know, like we're college students, for crying out loud. Like we want to do things at 11. I'm not saying that that stuff has to be open, but like at least have things that are more entertaining. Like it wasn't until recently that we got that thing with the YMCA. You know, before that, we had Fitness U, but we had to pay for that out of pocket, and that's not fun. Nobody wants to really hang out at Strawberry Square and grab taco. Like, there's nothing to do. And even now, there isn't much. I remember spending a lot of research and time trying to figure out, like, okay, what can we do to get a basketball court on City Island? Because maybe students would like that. I guess that's one of the biggest issues that I have with HU. And it's weird because seeing it from the lens of both a student and a member of SGA, there are some things that are, I guess, we don't get paid, but there are some things that are just out of our pay grade. And as a student, it could be really frustrating, for sure. I know as a biotech student, and from speaking to a lot of people that are in a science-based major, it feels like sometimes the university doesn't really care about us. I remember when we had our career fair, and we had a bunch of like really interesting places, but a lot of them dealt with more I guess of a technical or business aspect of it. There wasn't much, at least for me, for example, as a biotech major, that really caught my attention. But then, like technology, cybersecurity, they get multiple floors, and I remember they had like this VR thing, and it's like, well, where's the representation for the science part of science and technology? You know, it almost feels sometimes like certain groups get more representation than a science majors, which is really disheartening too because I love the place, but sometimes it feels like dang, like why do we kind of get like the back end of things? That's how it feels like to me at least. Um, like even with a new building being built, a lot of it I don't think is very science focused. I know that they're trying to add a new nursing major in that building. They have like this is all from I think what I from what I know I think they want to add like this hotel thing to it as well, where there's like a hotel integrated into the building, and it's just like what part of it will be for the students? You know what I mean? And again, sometimes I feel like it's just more for PR and for to say like, oh, we're the top science and tech school in the country or whatever they claim, I guess. And sometimes they're really cheesy. Oh, talk nerdy to me. Oh, I hate that so much. Or like
Okay.
leave it to the geeks. You know the ad I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking.
I know
Oh,
what you're talking about, bro. So here's the thing. First and foremost, coach, I think you've given a really good overall perspective of what a lot of people have been saying, are saying, but not really hearing them like putting it out there about our school in a nutshell. We
mm-hmm,
lack a lot of different areas, which we really much is our is not there. You
mm-hmm,
know, one of the main things you brought up was like how we kick it to hack a lot. We as students get annoyed by that because it's like, you go to a college, you don't want to be compared to another college, you want to be compared to your college. So it's so bad sometimes when you always get compared to the other colleges. It feels like an insult. The thing you mentioned about esports, the whole how a lot of people hated them at first because of that whole, it's because they get all this type of treatment. And then you also hit on the fact that majors get better than the other. I think Marilyn, we talk about how like we talk about your business major and how you feel like they don't get much happening there.
all the
And I think it's
time.
important. I think it's important to understand that these are things that are actually happening at university now. Can they change? Well, it depends on if people are making noise enough for change. Like, I
mm-hmm,
here's the thing: in any situation, if you have the majority of people with you, if you have the supporters with you, you win by default. It's just you have to organize that
mm-hmm.
into actual mission, and then it does stuff. I mean, my time in the SC, like we had a lot of ideas we wanted to do, from what I understood of the president and vice president of my time to do. And no disrespect to them,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, we're students. I'm not expecting them to pull off a miracle,
Yeah.
especially having the support for it. Like, I'm not
Mm-hmm,
expecting much from them. I respect they try because there's no do or do not.
mm-hmm.
There's trying and there's not doing nothing at all.
Yeah.
And so, I respected that. And no matter how cheesy and grammatic it was, at least there were effort in there. But I can understand like how someone would the areas where definitely you could improve on. It all comes down to listening to the people who actually are enjoying what you have given them, which is the student. And then depends on other areas too. If it's like education, maybe let's take your faculty a little bit more, talk to them about that type of stuff. But overall, it's all a listening game and then improving on that. I think
Yeah.
the union was the example of students who said, "Oh yeah, we want this for a long time." Because I think like the people that I knew were talking about this for years, like Tiffany and Sam, and eventually it happened. And I'm like, "Oh great, their thing came true after like a couple of years." Well, I think kids were like turned off at first by it because they saw offices in there, and then they were like, "Okay, this is really for the students." And then I
Yeah.
think that like there were other situations too, but overall, does if you can understand your identity and then also listen to the feedback, rather positive or negative, you can start something really good. And coach, you did a really you really hit on the mark on everything that we lack and what we can improve on. So I think those are really good things to consider.
And don't get me wrong, it's not like I hate the university either. Like I wouldn't be a senior at HU if I didn't like it. I would have not easily, but I would have transferred somewhere else if I didn't like it. There are a lot of things that I love about it. One, it being a small campus, it's easier for me. It's easy to see professors and students as people, like it's easy for me to walk into Naeem's office and be like, "Hey, what's up, Naeem?" Or go to Aaron Rock's office and not be like, "Oh, hi, Mr. Rock." It's Aaron. Like, "Hey, Aaron, how you doing? How's the family? How's the wife?" It's more. There's a semblance of almost like a family in a way. I don't want to sound like cheesy or anything, but it's like you can talk to your professors about what you're going through, and they have time for it. They have office hours where you can come in and talk to them about how you're feeling. Like they understand, like, hey, I had a bad week. The semester isn't going really well for me. Is there any way we can kind of work around like bringing in late assignments or whatever it is, and they understand that. And that's one of the things that people, I can't imagine because I haven't gone to like a big university like Penn State, but there has to be in my mind this fear of like visiting your teacher. It's very hard growing up through elementary and middle school and seeing your professor as like a robot that recharges at 3 o'clock when you leave. But they're people and they have their lives, and I appreciate you for it, that I can see staff as people and understand that they go through their own things as well. One of the things I really love as well is when students want something done, HU gets it done. If students want a club, they can start their club or interest group and it'll happen. Whether it be an athletic group, esports. I know Anime Club is a thing now, and through the pandemic, they're doing very well. Esports, I don't know who asked for it, but they got it. Um, and you just have many different groups that people can fit into. And if you don't find a group that you fit in, make one, and as long as you go through the right processes, boom, you're good. And that's one of the things I love about the place is that they care about the students. They might not always. It's weird because they might not always care, but they care on a internal level. Um, like I'm really grateful that like during the pandemic when everything was closed down last semester or last spring of last year, late spring, the students that were still in housing, they brought in like I forgot what it was, like specifically, like donated food or something. And it was like a full rack of ribs, like some beans, rice, vegetables. And some universities gave their students like a ham sandwich, you know what I mean? And I really appreciate that we care about the students kind of thing. I really appreciate that. I love the level of closeness that the university has, for sure, within the staff and the students.
Yeah, I think that, man. I mean, I think that's one thing our school could. I think, like, you can dish as much as you want. Anyone who goes there has gone there, transferred. You gotta understand, we're a small university, and while I'm not going to say, oh, we're still new, we're not new. We've been out since 2003. New is like a year or two after. We're just a school that's constantly growing, learning from past mistakes. You're gonna have your good days with them. You're gonna have your bad days with them. You're gonna have some things you don't agree with they do. You're gonna be like, okay, they do good. But at the end of the day, you wouldn't spend 4 years at the place if you didn't have a good reason for it.
Yeah.
And for me, I valued all the friendships and the connections I made over education there, which is my reasons really. But it goes far, and I think it's really good that Coach you really hit on those points. And especially just talking about the whole idea of just a family you're building here. So I think that's really cool. So that being said, Marilyn, do you have any more questions you would like to ask?
I do. I would like to touch on, well, if you would like to talk about any of your projects or internship experiences that you completed at HU, if they were like interesting to you and you want to share them.
My internship experience was actually last semester. I worked with, he's new this year. His name is Ian Kansky. I worked with him for a little bit on the agricultural sector of biotechnology, where my concentration is pharmaceutical design. I tackled more agriculture, which was a lot of fun while I was doing it. Um, I got to learn a lot about different forms of vertical farming indoors and how it's supposed to tackle the one level of overpopulation that is happening, and also being able to get healthy food to people as quickly as possible. Um, for the most part, the idea is that plants are grown indoors in a nutrition-rich environment that allows them um, to grow in a controlled environment. Um, I guess one of the examples that HU has of indoor farming is the aquaponics lab that we have at the student union, where through the use of fish waste, we use that to give nutrients to the plants that we grow in there, whether they're mostly leafy greens, your lettuces and whatnot, spinach, I think. Um, it was a really interesting experience learning a lot about, like, for example, I didn't know that they're technically not considered organic because they're not grown in soil. That's a really weird thing because for some reason, even though um, they use, like, Bright Farms, for example, that's located, I think, in New Jersey, have they use less pesticides, but they're not considered organic. They're healthier, and people agree that it is, but for some reason, the FDA just doesn't want to consider them organic because it doesn't grow in soil. Um, but for the most part, it's really interesting learning about just that whole aspect of agriculture.
Yeah, so going forward, where do you see yourself with biotechnology after you graduate?
um, Not entirely sure, to be honest with you. I definitely want to take advantage of the connections that I have. It was something that I struggled with for a long time, whether or not I was going to do grad school, or if I was to do grad school, am I doing it because I want to, or because I'm telling myself that I need to. Um, I'm more comfortable with not knowing what's ahead. I'm only 22, and by the end of the year, I'll be 22 with a bachelor's degree in biotech. Um, and
Great.
so, which is really crazy to think about. And so, being in the position that I am at a young age allows me to is now when I'm being presented with all these doors, you know. This is really the moment that school has been preparing me for in a way, where now that after this the world is my oyster in a way. What do I want to do with the things that I've learned, the skill set that I've acquired? So to answer your question, I have no idea, but I'm excited for it.
Awesome. Well, I mean, it's got to be a sweet feeling being on the edge of graduation.
Oh, it definitely is. Yup.
So that's about it for me. Steven, do you have any final questions or remarks?
Okay, so Jeraldy, is there anyone you want to just give a special shout out to and thank on this lovely podcast? You know, you touched a lot
Uh,
of points. But got anyone you want to talk to? Say like, hey, I appreciate you, bro.
oh God, there are a lot of people I can definitely say thanks for. First person is for sure my guy James Schuler. Love that man to death. Love that man to death. He's definitely been uh, a motivating force in my life when it comes to finishing school. Can't tell you how many times I've talked to him about dropping out, but still here, still going, and he's definitely um, a major part for that. Yeah, yeah, James. Shout out my guy James. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. I gotta give you that one. You got to cut your boy out. I thought you were going to shout out to your mom, but, 'cause you got to say out to your mom, But
She won't. She can't hear this. She'll be okay. I'll shout her out later.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. But that's all I got. So, Marilyn, if you got anything else, you can take us all out then.
All right. Well, with that being said, thank you, Jeraldy, for coming on today's episode of HU Flow Podcast, your #1 college podcast, as we're calling ourselves today.
I like
As always, I'm your host, Marilyn. Today we have Jeraldy and Steven. And if you like what you hear, subscribe down below. Give us a like. We have many more of these episodes with all different students at HU with different degrees and majors. So if there's something that interests you, go on and listen to more. And we'll be having more of these. So with that being said, have a good day, everyone, and goodbye.
Peace.